So Gregory, we are pleased to have you here, and you have a PhD in sustainability sciences. It's a very interesting topic for us, and you are an expert in the fourth mission of universities and in co-creation for sustainability. We are very pleased because it's something we are working on since some years ago, and today we think your contribution to our PhD students could be very important. First of all, I would like to ask you something about the difference between the third and the fourth mission, from your point of view.
Yeah, sure. Maybe first of all, if I could tell you a very honest reaction to when I hear somebody talking about this radical idea I proposed, which was that not only does the university have 3 missions, but it actually has a 4th mission. I still now, I struggle whether this should be framed as an expanded 3rd mission or an entirely new 4th mission. Mm-hmm. So that's the first sort of response to that. And I guess you're asking what are the fundamental differences between the conventional 3rd mission, which has always been framed in economic terms with a very strong focus upon technology transfer. And how does this compare to this emerging mission that's occurring in the context of sustainability? So the first thing I would point out would be the scope of the fields that are concerned. The 3rd mission, technology transfer, we're seeing that predominantly occurring in fields such as the life sciences and engineering, especially software engineering, and some fields of engineering that have a very applied method. But what we're seeing in this sustainability co-creation, we're seeing that this is occurring in much more fields. We're seeing it occurring sometimes in humanities, sometimes a lot of the time in social sciences, but a vast array of political science and engineering fields. The other thing that we're seeing is that there's a shift away from device engineering in the technology transfer model. There's a big emphasis upon developing a product, an invention, and commercializing that. So we have a shift away from that towards more place engineering, because there's a community of stakeholders and there's an actual physical location that's concerned by the need to transform society towards sustainability. So that's a fundamental shift that I'm seeing as well. Yeah. And I guess another shift that you could also argue is the inclusion of society, of civil society. The inclusion of local government, which seems to be a very important actor. You don't really see this in the traditional triple helix manifestation of technology transfer, which is usually large corporations, industry, and the university, with the help of more so state or federal government. That's like the facilitator. Yeah. So that's another very radical change that I'm seeing.
Yeah, it's really interesting indeed. I would like to know if you can give us a couple of examples that you feel relevant for us, for a university like this that is specialized on humanities in a rural area, and maybe you have some examples overseas that could be inspiring for us.
Yeah, sure. So there's one example. It's called Oberlin College, and they're actually a liberal arts college in the United States, and they're in the state of Ohio. They launched a project several years ago called the Oberlin Project. And for me, that was extremely interesting for a number of reasons. One of the main reasons I guess it was interesting was because this idea of co-creating sustainability with society, this actually became a very important mission for that college. And the reason it was able to become a mission was because a very important professor there called David Orr, who a lot of people might have heard of in sustainability, he worked with the president. And so there was like top-down approval, if you like. And so I guess similar to this university, they were very strong, not so much in engineering or fields like that. It was more so social sciences and liberal arts and creative arts especially. That was a big part of their identity. So how do they interact with society? So what occurred was an extremely ambitious vision of a transformation of the entire town. We're talking about a town here, Oberlin, of maybe 8,000 to 10,000 residents. But their idea was to transform this from a weak economy that was having trouble adjusting to a post-fossil fuel era that was very economically vulnerable because a lot of their, for example, agricultural outputs were not consumed in the town but sent away. So economically it wasn't working. Environmentally speaking, it wasn't working. So the idea was to transform this whole town. And so that's the Oberlin project. And so how did they do this? So this is where it's interesting. We're not talking about, for example, technology transfer. What we're talking about is this idea of using the many different functions in the university for transforming society. So the most obvious one is actually education. So getting students actually to start learning about sustainability, not in the classroom, but with actual stakeholders in the community, so project-based learning, and getting students contributing to actual sustainability projects that are already in the community. So injecting university resources in that manner, that's one way. Another manner, which is a lot of the US universities do a lot of work in, is they do a lot of real estate development. Mm-hmm. So using their the expenses that they're always going to carry out to improve their building portfolios, the idea was to do this in a way that would improve the sustainability of the community. So they come up with a vision of, I have to get this name right, I believe it's the Green Arts District. Mm-hmm. And the idea is this is going to be at the LEED standard in America, platinum, but it's like at a neighborhood level. So the idea is to build an example of a sustainable community and use this as a laboratory for sort of consuming natural resources from that area. So let's say biomass, let's say foods, I guess alcohol, things like this. So this is all a very, very ambitious project of making this town eventually carbon neutral. Mm-hmm. And it's a project that involves some very explicit metrics, and it's a project that involves a lot of policy work as well. So doing research on external best practices and bringing that into the community, and then somehow shaping policy in that community. Mm-hmm. So that can make progress towards sustainability. So this was done not with technical experts, this project, it's still in action now. The progress is very slow. They have very long-term timeframes. They're looking at becoming carbon neutral, not only in the college, but the whole town of 10,000 people by around mid-century. And they also got some other explicit targets, for example, making agriculture, local food consumption, eventually attaining around 70%. And I think the baseline is something like maybe 15% now. Mm-hmm. So these are huge shifts. And they're having a lot of trouble getting there, actually. Progress is very slow. Mm-hmm. So these are, I would just to quickly summarize this story, it's not necessarily done with, like fields like engineering and technical experts. It's more so done with, I guess, the local community, the local municipality, the city of Oberlin. It's done with really involving the students, and it's done through a variety of means, and I guess technology transfer, so the trialing of new technologies, trying to commercialize them, is a very, very, very small part of this much larger and more ambitious and complex interaction with society to steer it towards greater sustainability.
Yeah, thank you for your contribution. Yeah. I think it's very inspiring for us. It's almost an invitation to work in a different way, with a new vision even for our university and for the challenges we are facing in this period. So thank you so much for your presence here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.